She deserved a better rear end. You already got your army benefits. That's what my mom said after skipping my military homecoming to take my golden sister to her cosmetic BBL surgery. They drained $8,000 from my combat pay while I was deployed, so I cut the phones, killed the streaming, and shut down the emergency card they'd been bleeding dry. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey guys, strap in for this dumpster fire of a family drama. Throw away because my sister somehow figured out how to steal my Reddit account too. Looking back now, 28 male, should have seen this train wreck coming from miles away. My sister Amber, 30 female, was the golden child since day one. 2 years older than me, straight A student, homecoming queen, the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, I was just average. Decent grades, played baseball but wasn't good enough for college scouts, kind of floated through high school without making much of a splash. Our parents never tried to hide their favoritism. When Amber got into an Ivy League college, they threw this massive party, invited everyone from the neighborhood. When I got accepted to state, Mom just put the acceptance letter on the fridge for a week. That was it. Don't get me wrong, they weren't abusive or anything. They provided the basics. But there was always this unspoken thing where Amber's achievements were celebrated, and mine were just acknowledged. And I wasn't bitter, just resigned to it. That's just how it was in our family. After high school, I kind of drifted. Tried community college for a semester, worked some dead-end retail jobs. Nothing felt right. Then one day, I was driving past the recruiting office and just pulled in. No grand plan, no dramatic decision. Just felt like maybe the military could give me some direction. My parents weren't thrilled when I told them I'd enlisted. Dad said it was throwing away my potential. Mom worried I'd get killed. Amber, to her credit, was the only one who seemed to take it seriously. She even came to my basic training graduation. My parents couldn't make it because they were helping Amber move into her new apartment after she got her first real job. Boot camp was the first time in my life I felt like I was good at something. The structure, the discipline, it suited me. For once, I wasn't being compared to my perfect sister. It was just me against the standards, and I was exceeding them. I got stationed at Fort Brenson after training. It was only about 3 hours from home, so I figured I'd see my family pretty regularly. But somehow, they were always busy. Mom and Dad made it down maybe twice in 2 years. Always some excuse. Dad's back acting up, Mom had a thing at church, the car was making a weird noise. Meanwhile, they drove 8 hours to help Amber move again when she got a promotion and relocated. I tried not to let it bother me. I made friends on base, found a new family in my unit. Guys who had my back no matter what. We trained together, partied together, bitched about officers together. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Then came the deployment orders. Afghanistan, 14 months. I remember calling my parents to tell them. Mom cried, which was something. Dad got real quiet, then asked if there was any way I could get out of it. Not because he was worried about me. He just thought it was a waste of time that would set me back from eventually going to college. Even in that moment, he was comparing me to Amber and her fancy degree. The night before I shipped out, my parents actually drove down to base. We had dinner at this chain restaurant near the gate. It was awkward as hell. They kept talking about Amber's new boyfriend, some hotshot lawyer named Trevor. How they thought he might be the one. Asked me if I was dating anyone, then didn't really listen to my answer. As they were leaving, Mom hugged me tight and whispered, "Please come back safe." It was the most genuine moment we'd had in years. Dad shook my hand, clapped me on the shoulder. "Make us proud, son." Like I hadn't been trying to do that my whole damn life. I shipped out the next morning with my unit. No idea that the next 14 months would change everything. Afghanistan was, well, if you know, you know. And if you don't, no amount of explaining will make you understand. The heat, the dust, the constant tension of not knowing if today's the day you step on the wrong patch of dirt. The feeling of carrying 80 pounds of gear in 110-degree heat. Sweat soaking through every layer, sand in places you didn't know you had. I wrote home every week for the first few months. Actual physical letters, old school style. Mom would write back occasionally, Dad never did. Their letters were always about stuff happening back home. Amber got engaged to Trevor. Amber and Trevor bought a house. Amber got promoted again. It was like reading a newsletter about my sister's life. 6 months in, our unit had its first casualty. Good dude from Texas. Always had pictures of his wife and baby girl. He was on point in a village, went into a building, and that was it. Gone in a second. I wrote home about it. Not the details, just that we'd lost someone and it was hitting me hard. Mom's return letter just said, "That's terrible, honey," before launching into a 5-page description of Amber's engagement party. After that, I stopped writing so much. Started living more in the present, with the guys around me who actually gave a shit if I lived or died. My squad became my real family. For Christmas, my parents sent a package. Half the stuff was things I couldn't use or had specifically told them I didn't need. The other half was obviously regifted junk from their house. Meanwhile, some of the other guys got these amazing, thoughtful boxes from home. Homemade cookies, favorite snacks, new socks, handwritten letters from everyone in the family. I got another package a month later. This one was different. Actually had stuff I wanted. Good beef jerky, my favorite candy, new earbuds, a paperback by my favorite author. I was confused until I read the note. It wasn't from my parents. It was from Hannah, my sister's fiance's sister. We'd only met a couple times before I deployed, but apparently she remembered stuff about me that my own parents didn't. "Just wanted you to have some comforts from home," she wrote. "Trevor mentioned your parents hadn't sent much, so I put this together. Stay safe out there." That package meant more to me than anything my family had done in years. In the last month, the anticipation of going home started building. Guys talking about what they'd do first, who they'd see. Most had wives, girlfriends, kids waiting. I had my parents and Amber. Not exactly the homecoming of my dreams, but they were family. Had to count for something, right? Our command was super organized about the whole homecoming thing. Sent detailed paperwork to families. Date, time, location, all of it spelled out. They even did follow-up calls to make sure families got the information. The ceremony was scheduled for May 18th, 1400 hours, at the main hangar on Fort Brenson. I called home from a satellite phone a few days before we left country. Mom answered. Told her I'd see them soon, at the ceremony. She sounded distracted. Said something about checking the calendar and they'd be there. I figured everything was set. Man, I had no idea what was waiting for me. The flight back to the States took forever. We stopped in Germany, then had this long-ass flight across the Atlantic to the East Coast. Guys were wired, couldn't sleep. Everyone passing around phone pics of their kids, wives, girlfriends, making plans for what they'd do first when they got home. I kept quiet, just stared out the window watching the ocean pass underneath us. 14 months of sand and death behind me. I wasn't expecting a hero's welcome or anything dramatic. Just someone there. Someone who gave enough of a damn to show up and say, "Welcome home." When we landed, they held us in this processing area for a couple hours. Paperwork, gear check, the usual military hurry up and wait. Then they lined us up by last name. I could hear the crowd on the other side of these big hangar doors. Hundreds of people waiting, flags waving, kids squealing, signs with "Welcome home" in big letters. The doors opened and the ceremony started. A real dog and pony show, speeches from officers, thank yous from local politicians, all that standard stuff. Then they started calling names. First up was this guy ahead of me in line. His wife and 2 little girls ran to him, wrapped around his legs like little koalas. Everyone cheered and clapped. Next was another soldier. His whole extended family was there, like 15 people with matching t-shirts. More cheers, more clapping, then more names, more reunions. Each soldier walking out into a sea of hugs and tears and "thank you for your service." Then they called my name and rank. I fixed my uniform, took a deep breath, and walked out into the bright lights of the hangar. Nothing. Not a single person moved forward. No one called my name. Not one familiar face in the crowd. The silence was deafening. You could almost feel the pity from the other families. Some looked away, embarrassed for me. Others whispered to each other, probably wondering where my people were. The commanding officer, who'd been smiling and shaking hands with each returning soldier, gave me this look that said everything. "Sorry, son. Move along." I walked across that floor alone, boots echoing on the concrete. The next name was called, and the cheers erupted again like nothing had happened, like there hadn't just been this black hole of silence when they called mine. I stood off to the side, watching family after family reunite. Kids jumping into their dad's arms, wives kissing husbands, parents hugging sons and daughters they hadn't seen in over a year. All around me was this explosion of love and relief and homecoming. And there I was, alone, in a sea of reunions. A couple of the guys' moms came over to me afterwards. "Are you okay, honey? Is someone coming for you?" I mumbled something about them probably being stuck in traffic, but we all knew. No one was coming. As the hangar emptied out and families headed home for private celebrations, I sat on this metal bench outside the base gate, Just me, my army duffel, and a suitcase. The sun started to set and it got chilly. Still no phone. Mine got busted our last week in country, and I figured I'd just get a new one when I got home. So I sat there under this streetlight, watching car after car drive away. Families together, heading home. I'd survived firefights and IEDs and a fucking war just to come home to an empty welcome. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the buses to stop running, long enough for the street to go quiet, long enough to realize no one was coming for me. One of my squad mates eventually drove by with his parents. They'd been out celebrating and were heading home when they spotted me still sitting there. Hayes, what the hell, man? You still here? His mom insisted they give me a ride. They dropped me at this cheap motel about 2 miles from base. His dad slipped me $40 when I wasn't looking. That night, in that shitty motel room with its buzzing fluorescent lights and paper-thin walls, I lay on the bed still in my uniform. Didn't even have the energy to change. Just stared at the ceiling and let it sink in. I'd made it through a war zone just to realize I didn't have anyone waiting for me on the other side. But maybe they had an emergency and couldn't come? Maybe something happened. My mind was racing with all the possibilities. The next morning, I took a taxi to my parents' house, still wearing my uniform from yesterday, because everything else was packed away. Hadn't slept more than maybe an hour. Too busy replaying that silent walk across the hangar floor in my head. I rang the doorbell and my mom answered. Her face went from confused to shocked in about half a second. Jackson! Oh my God! You're home! We weren't expecting you until next week. I just stared at her. Mom, the unit sent you papers 2 weeks ago, with the exact date and time. She started stammering about how they must have gotten confused, how they'd been so busy lately, how things had been crazy around the house. Then I heard my sister's voice from inside. Mom? Who is it? Amber appeared in the doorway, walking carefully like she was in pain, wearing some kind of compression garment. Dad showed up behind them, looking like he'd seen a ghost. You weren't there because of her, weren't you? I said, the pieces clicking together. Dad tried to explain. Jack, your sister needed us yesterday. She had a medical procedure and… What kind of procedure was so important you missed your son coming home from a war zone? Amber had the nerve to roll her eyes. It was cosmetic surgery, if you must know. And I needed someone there because Trevor refused to support me or take me. Cosmetic surgery. I repeated the words, letting them sink in. My welcome home ceremony, after 14 months in Afghanistan. And you all missed it for cosmetic surgery. We're sorry, honey, Mom said, trying to touch my arm. I pulled away. But she really needed the support. Trevor's been so difficult lately and… I cut her off. I'm staying at the Sunset Motel on Route 16. I'll be back tomorrow to get the rest of my stuff from the storage unit. As I turned to leave, Amber called after me. Don't be so dramatic. It's not like you even told us the right date. I didn't look back, just walked away while they kept making excuses. It wasn't until later that night that I found out the whole truth, and it was so much worse than I thought. As I walked back to the motel, my mind was racing. How could they miss something as important as their son coming home from a war zone? A cosmetic surgery? Really? And what was that comment about not telling them the right date? The military doesn't just text deployment schedules. There are official papers, follow-up calls, emails. It's not like ordering a pizza where the delivery time might change. Something wasn't adding up, and the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. I was still at the motel when someone knocked on my door. It was Hannah, the one who sent me that care package that actually had stuff I wanted. Can I come in? She asked. I let her in, and she handed me a phone. Trevor wanted you to have this. He figured you might need it. Trevor and I weren't close or anything, but we were cool. I thanked her and started setting up the phone. That's when she dropped the bomb. There's something else you should know, she said, looking uncomfortable. About the money for Amber's surgery. Turns out, my sister hadn't just used my parents for her stupid cosmetic procedure. She'd somehow gotten access to my money, too. See, before I deployed, I'd set up an account where part of my combat pay would go into savings. I gave my parents access to it for emergencies only, like if something happened to me and they needed to handle my affairs. Hannah showed me bank statements on her phone. 3 withdrawals, total of $8,200, all made 2 weeks ago, right when my sister decided she needed her new body. I stared at the screen in disbelief. With spotty internet at our remote outpost during the final weeks of deployment and statements going to my parents' house, I'd had no way of knowing what was happening to my accounts back home. Trevor found out yesterday, Hannah explained. That's why he didn't go with her. He refused to support it when he found out she took your money. They've been fighting about it for days. I felt sick. Not only did they miss my homecoming for her cosmetic surgery, but she stole from me to pay for it. There's more, Hannah said. Amber told your parents you weren't coming home for another 2 weeks. She showed them fake papers with a different date. I think she knew they'd never choose her surgery over your homecoming if they knew the real date. Everything clicked into place. My sister deliberately lied to my parents about when I was coming home, so they'd be with her instead. She knew exactly what she was doing. I thanked Hannah for telling me the truth. After she left, I pulled up my bank account on the new phone. Sure enough, the money was gone. And there were other withdrawals too. Smaller ones going back months. Hundreds here and there. Totaling another couple thousand. I wasn't just betrayed, I was robbed. By my own blood. So the next morning, I went straight to my bank. The banker's face changed as she scrolled through my account history. This doesn't look right, she said carefully. These withdrawals were made while you were deployed? Yes, ma'am. I was in Afghanistan. She pulled up the signature cards, compared them to mine, shook her head. These aren't even close to matching. This is clearly unauthorized access. I filed a fraud claim right there, removed my parents from all accounts, changed every password, security question, PIN, set up fraud alerts on my credit. The banker even helped me freeze my credit report so nobody could open new accounts in my name. Then I went to my parents' house. They were both home. Amber was there too, looking smug despite being uncomfortable from her surgery. We need to talk, I said when Dad opened the door. They sat me down in the living room and started with more excuses. How they got the dates mixed up, how sorry they were, how they would have been there if they'd known. I cut them off and put the bank statements on the table. Explain this, I said. Mom went pale. Dad looked confused, then angry as he realized what he was seeing. Amber didn't even try to deny it. You weren't using it anyway, she said. You were off playing soldier while I was dealing with real life. I needed it more than you. Playing soldier? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was getting shot at while you were deciding your butt wasn't good enough? She smirked. Well, I deserved a better rear end. You already get free housing and meals. What do you need money for? My parents went pale. Amber, Mom said slowly. What did you do? Oh, please, my sister rolled her eyes. Like Jackson even needs all that money. He gets everything for free in the army anyway. Free food, free housing. What does he need savings for? Dad finally spoke up. Did you take money from your brother's account? So what if I did? Amber snapped. He's fine. Look at him. Meanwhile, I've been stuck here dealing with real problems. Trevor's being a complete jerk about my surgery, threatening to divorce me. Because you stole from me, I yelled. Your husband found out you took my combat pay. That's why he wouldn't take you to the surgery. My parents looked back and forth between us, finally starting to understand. And the homecoming date, I continued. You lied about that too, didn't you? You knew exactly when I was coming home. Amber's face said it all. Mom started crying. Dad just looked broken. I'm done, I said. I've already reported the fraud to the bank. They'll be contacting you. I'm taking back what's mine and then I'm out. As I was leaving, Dad tried to stop me. Jack, please. We didn't know. We would never have. Save it, I said. You've always chosen her. Every time. Well, now you've got her. Hope it's worth it. I walked out and didn't look back. You know that moment when something inside you just snaps? Like you've been bending and bending for years, and suddenly you can't bend anymore? That's what happened to me. I walked out of my parents' house that day and decided I was done. Not just mad, not just taking a break, done. I'd given these people chances my whole life. I'd accepted being second best, being the afterthought, being the one whose achievements didn't matter. But this was too far. Over the next few days, I went scorched earth. First, the bank froze all of Amber's accounts during the fraud investigation. Then, I found out Trevor had apparently had enough and filed for divorce. Hannah called to let me know he'd moved out and was staying with his brother. He said this was the last straw, Hannah explained. Stealing from a deployed soldier. Her own brother. He's done. Meanwhile, I got an apartment and started cutting ties. Changed all my passwords. Closed joint accounts. Removed myself from every family plan. My parents' phones, which I'd been paying for, cut off. The streaming services they'd been using, gone. The credit card I'd let them use for emergencies, canceled. I didn't do it to be petty. I did it because I needed clean breaks. No more leeching off me. No more taking me for granted. It was time they realized I wasn't their backup plan or their ATM. They noticed real quick. Mom started calling the motel, then my new phone when I finally gave her the number. Jack, please, she begged. We had no idea Amber took your money. We would never have allowed that. And we really did think you were coming home next week. She showed us papers. And you never thought to check? I asked. The original papers were sent to you, not her. Did you even read them? Or did you just let Amber handle everything like always? She didn't have an answer for that. Dad tried a different approach. He came by my apartment looking older than I remembered. Son, I know we messed up, he said, but cutting us off completely isn't the answer. We're still your family. Family? I laughed. Family shows up. Family doesn't let the golden child steal thousands of dollars. Family reads the freaking papers telling them when their son is coming home from war. He just stood there, taking it. For once, he didn't have any excuses for Amber. She's always been like this, he finally admitted. We made it too easy for her. And now we're seeing what that created. It was the first honest thing I'd heard from either of them. Meanwhile, Amber was on a rampage. When her accounts got frozen, she apparently went ballistic. Started calling everyone in the family, telling them I was destroying the family over a little mix-up, that I was being selfish and dramatic. But the thing about being a lying thief is that eventually people stop believing you, especially when the bank confirms you committed fraud. I didn't respond to any of her messages, didn't pick up when she called, just let her dig her own grave with her lies. For the first time in my life, I wasn't playing her game. My buddy from deployment, Rodriguez, came to stay with me for a week. He'd been discharged early with a medical and was between places. Having him there helped. Someone who understood what I'd been through, who didn't need it explained. You did the right thing, man, he told me one night as we were playing video games. Some people don't deserve second chances. I wasn't sure if that was true for my parents. Maybe they did deserve another shot. But right then, I couldn't see past the betrayal, the empty hangar, the stolen money, the years of being second best. So I stayed the course. Radio silence, full no contact, focused on getting my own life in order. About a month after I got home, things had mostly settled into a new normal. I was working at my buddy's construction company, had my own place, was starting to feel human again. Then the desperate calls started coming. First it was Mom, her voice shaking on the phone. Jackson, please, we need your help. The bank is threatening legal action against Amber. They're talking about pressing criminal charges. We can't afford a lawyer. I told her that wasn't my problem. Next it was Dad. He showed up at my apartment unannounced, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling. Son, I hate to ask this. I know we don't deserve your help, but we're about to lose the house. The mortgage is 3 months behind. I lost my job when the company downsized. Your mother's hours got cut. We've got nowhere to go. What about Amber? I asked. Can't she help? He looked down. Amber moved in with some friend. She's not speaking to us. Says it's our fault for not defending her. So I'm the backup plan, I said. Again. No, that's not, he started. It is. It's always been like that. I'm only family when you need something. He left with nothing. I closed the door and tried to ignore the guilt. They'd made their bed. A week later, Mom called again. More desperate this time. We're being evicted, Jackson. We have to be out by Friday. I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But please, we have nowhere to go. I hung up without answering. Friday came and went. I figured they'd found somewhere. Then on Sunday, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Mom calling from a payphone. We're staying at the roadside inn, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Room 118. They only let us pay for 3 nights. After that, I don't know what we're going to do. The pain in her voice was real. I didn't answer, just listened. I'm not asking for money, she continued. I wouldn't do that to you again. I wanted you to know where we are. In case you wanted to say goodbye before we leave town. Your father found a possible job 3 states away, living in his cousin's garage until we get on our feet. After I hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, thinking about that empty homecoming, the stolen money, years of being second best. I spent that whole night thinking about what to do. The next day, I drove to the roadside inn, knocked on room 118. Mom answered, eyes wide with shock. Dad was sitting on the bed behind her, staring at some papers. The room was tiny, smelled like cigarettes and despair. Their stuff was packed in garbage bags and old suitcases. They'd really lost everything. Jackson, Mom whispered, you came. I'm not giving you money, I said immediately. That's not why I'm here. We understand, Dad said, standing up. We're just glad to see you. I took a deep breath. I have some conditions. Non-negotiable. They nodded, desperate. First, I'm not paying your debts. Those are yours to deal with. Second, I own a rental property on the east side. Small place needs work. You can stay there, but you pay utilities and maintenance. Third, Dad, there's an opening at my construction company. It's hard work, low pay to start, but it's something. They looked at each other, then back at me. Fourth, and most important, I continued, no contact with Amber until she makes this right. No helping her. No enabling. She pays back what she stole, or she's not part of this. What exactly are you offering? Dad asked carefully. A chance to start over, I said. On my terms. You work. You pay your own way. You learn to stand on your own. And maybe eventually we rebuild something. But it won't be like before. Ever. Mom started crying. Dad just nodded, a mix of shame and relief on his face. Why? He asked. After everything. Why help us at all? I thought about that empty homecoming. That long walk across the hangar floor with nobody cheering. The silence that still echoed in my nightmares. Because I don't want to be like you, I said simply. I don't want to be the kind of person who leaves family behind. They couldn't say anything, and they moved into the rental the next day. Dad started work the day after that. Mom found a part-time job at a grocery store. They stuck to my conditions. No handouts, no free rides. Just a chance to prove they could change. I heard that Amber's procedure got infected. Trevor pushed through the divorce. She tried coming back to Mom and Dad when her friend kicked her out, but they stood firm. My parents have surprised me. They've actually stuck to the plan. Dad's still at the construction company. Got promoted to crew lead last month. Mom's working full-time at the grocery store now in management training. They pay their bills on time. They call when they say they will. They remember important dates. The rental house is starting to look decent. Dad's been fixing it up on weekends. New paint. Repaired the deck. Put in a small garden my mom wanted. They're talking about trying to buy it from me next year. I told them we could work something out. Last month, they had me over for dinner. Dad brought up my upcoming promotion ceremony to staff sergeant, surprising me that he'd actually remembered. Mom asked if they could attend. After thinking about it briefly, I agreed. Dad promised they wouldn't miss it this time. Said he'd taken the day off work and put it on 3 different calendars. Such a small thing, but it meant everything. And oh, remember Hannah? We kept in touch after everything went down. At first, it was just occasional texts checking in. Then we started grabbing coffee when she was in town for work. Eventually, those coffees turned into dinners. Those dinners turned into weekends. I never saw it coming. She was just this person who did the right thing when everyone else was doing the wrong thing. But somewhere along the way, I started looking forward to her messages more than anything else in my day. A couple of months ago, she moved to my city for a job opportunity. We've been officially dating for 4 months now. It's still new, still figuring things out. But man, it feels right in a way nothing has before. She also took me to meet her parents. They knew the whole story. Not just my side, but everything that went down with Trevor and Amber too. I was nervous as hell, figured they'd think I was this toxic guy who cut off his whole family. Instead, her dad shook my hand and said, "We've heard a lot about you. Thank you for your service." Then he showed me his den where he had pictures from his own time in the Marines. We spent 2 hours in there just talking. Her mom made this incredible dinner, asked me questions about myself, actual questions, where she listened to the answers. It hit me halfway through dessert. This is what family is supposed to feel like. People who make space for you, who see you. Hannah and I drove back to the city that night, and I was quiet most of the way. She asked if I was okay, and I just said, just thinking about how different families can be. She reached over and took my hand. Didn't say anything. Just held on while I processed. As for Amber, the bank ended up not pressing charges. Something about not wanting the PR nightmare of going after a veteran's sister. But they did recover most of the money. Karma has a funny way of catching up with people, though. Remember that infection from her BBL? Turns out it never fully healed right. She needed more medical procedures, which drained what little savings she had left after the divorce. The new boyfriend she'd moved in with? He bailed when her medical bills started piling up. According to Hannah, who still hears things through Trevor, Amber lost her job after missing too many days for medical appointments, then couldn't make rent. 3 days ago, she showed up at my apartment. Didn't call first. Just appeared at my door looking nothing like the confident sister I remembered. Hair unwashed, clothes worn out, dark circles under her eyes. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. "Jackson," she said, trying to sound casual but with this desperate edge in her voice. "Been a while?" I just stood there, not inviting her in, waiting to see what game she was playing now. "So, I've been doing a lot of thinking," she continued, picking at her nails, "about everything that happened. I think it's time we put this behind us. You know, reconcile. Like you did with Mom and Dad." I almost laughed. "Is that right?" "Yeah, you know, family is family after all. We should stick together." Then came the real reason for her sudden desire to reconnect. She was basically homeless, staying on a friend's couch that wasn't going to be available much longer. Needed a temporary loan to get back on her feet. Maybe a place to stay just for a week or two. What happened to all that BBL money? I asked. The stuff you stole from me while I was deployed? Her face hardened. Are you seriously still hung up on that? It's been months. Funny thing about theft, the amount of time doesn't change what it was. She switched tactics, eyes welling up with practiced tears. I have nowhere to go, Jackson. I've lost everything. I made a mistake, okay? People make mistakes. They do, I agreed. And then they face consequences. Mom and Dad earned their second chance by admitting what they did wrong and working to change. They didn't show up demanding help when they hit rock bottom. They were prepared to sleep in their car. So what? I have to sleep in my car too. Is that what you want? I shook my head. What I want doesn't matter. What matters is that you still don't get it. You're not here because you're sorry or because you want to make amends. You're here because you need something from me. Again. Fine, she snapped, the fake tears disappearing instantly. I thought you might have grown up, but you're still the same petty, jealous brother who couldn't handle not being the favorite. I actually smiled at that. See, that's where you're wrong. I'm not the same guy who came back from deployment. That guy might have given in, might have tried to buy your approval. The man I am now understands what real family looks like. And this, I gestured between us, isn't it? I closed the door as she started to launch into another tirade. Didn't slam it, just firmly shut it. Her voice continued muffled through the door for a minute before I heard footsteps stomping away. Hannah came out of the bedroom where she'd been giving us space. You okay? She asked, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Yeah, I said, and meant it. Actually, I'm good. The old me would have felt guilty, would have worried about Amber, would have maybe even given in. But that guy walked across an empty hangar floor and learned the hard way what family really means. Update. Thanks for all the comments and messages, guys. Didn't expect this to blow up like it did. For those asking about my parents' promotion ceremony, yeah, they showed up, on time, with a small celebration planned after. Baby steps, but meaningful ones.